friends, and welcome back to my channel. And here on this side of the internet, we talk about all things bookish, and this video is no different, as today I'm going to be sharing my fall reading wrap up, where we're going to talk about my wins, my losses, the books that I love, the books I didn't like so much, and all the in between. So let's jump into it. Okay, so first things first, let's talk about what my goals were when it came to my fall reading as a whole. And I really primarily only had two goals, and that was coming off of my summer of reading, which was very lackluster, and I fell behind a lot of my goals and my intentions for what I had for reading for the summer and for the year. So fall was going to be my time to really take the time to catch up, to prioritize this slow, gentle approach to reading, and just really truly appreciating books and really being intentional with my reading and making time to read, while also working on focusing to finish my TBR, getting caught up in some of the books that I wanted to read this year, some of the series that I wanted to get back into, and to just really enjoy all of the seasonal vibes that one associates with fall and reading. And when it came to accomplishing these goals, I did not accomplish them. I failed at both of them. I still kind of had that same frenetic energy when it came to reading this fall as I did this past summer. I just couldn't find my pace. A lot of it is due to just lifestyle and just life being chaotic and crazy right now when it comes to just work-life balance, and it comes to other things that I'm pursuing outside of reading kind of being chaotic, and me not being able to prioritize reading the way that I wanted to prioritize it, but still kind of trying to follow and keep pace with the reading goals and the way that I was reading at the beginning of the year. And it was disjointed and it didn't work. And when it came to sticking to my TBR, I sort of kind of started off really good on sticking to my TBR and then fell off track as I was becoming interested in other books. And I kind of was like, in a way, dibbling and dabbling with mood reading and whatnot. So that kind of didn't work for me either. But whenever we have losses, whenever we don't necessarily hit a goal, there's always an opportunity and space within that to learn something. I think the two biggest things that I have learned is that I really can't and I shouldn't be trying to read multiple books at the same time anymore, because my lifestyle has changed from what it was at the beginning of the year. So whereas before I was easily able to read like 6-7 books at a time because my lifestyle supported that and I had the time and energy for that, I do not have the time and energy for that now, and my lifestyle doesn't support that. So drastically shrinking down the books that I'm reading at one time to maybe 1 to 2 books, 3 the most, is probably going to be more beneficial and more doable for me, so that I can have a quality reading experience and I'm still able to hit my reading goals and have this pace that I enjoy, where I feel like I'm reading all the books that I want to read and I'm not, necessarily being bored or what have you, and able to just, enjoy a slower, gentler approach to reading. So that's one thing that I discovered. The second thing is, and this is not necessarily a discovery, but this is just an observation more or less, that seasonal TBRs do tend to work best for me. However, I don't think that I need to make them as like specific and detailed and long and overwhelming as I tend to do, and to have like maybe a few books that I want to prioritize for the season, but allow enough space and for flexibility and for me to change my mind as I tend to kind of like feel myself becoming more of a mood reader. And so that allows me the time if I feel like I want to just read a certain book or switch it up with my TBR, I am definitely able to do that. So those are the two biggest lessons that I have learned that I really think that I can apply when it comes to my winter reading and when it comes to just my yearly goals that I want to set for 2026 when it comes to reading. All right, friends, so let's dive into the statistics. So we're going to go month by month as we kind of explore what the vibe, what the feel was for each month and dive into the statistics for that specific month. And we're going to kickstart this with September, of course. So September was, if I could say anything about September, how my reading was, I would say it was not remarkable. Nothing to write home about. It was, again, the start of the season. It's that awkward transitional period where you're trying to find books that aren't too summary. And also you don't really want to rush, or particularly myself, I don't really want to rush into like more fall and autumn themed books because I live in South Texas, so it's hot outside. So reading about cooler temperatures sometimes just doesn't hit for me. As a person who's very much a seasonal atmospheric reader, it just doesn't allow me to immerse myself in the story. And I think that had some of what to do with it. And also just, I was still reeling from the summer. I got a new puppy. I was still figuring out structure and figuring out like a schedule with him and all of that newness. And I wasn't really committed to like prioritizing my reading time and spending time reading. There was a lot of things going on at work. So it just wasn't really that remarkable of a month. And I wasn't really able to hit my normal goals when it came to reading. And when we dig into the statistics that I got off of Storygraph, we'll see that for the month, I only read 4 books, which is really poor and low for me as a person who at the beginning of the year, I was reading like 10, 12 books per month. So that's like a disappointment for me. The number of pages I read was 1,356, which is also pretty low for me. My average rating was 3.5. And while 3.5 isn't necessarily bad, that's kind of putting it in above average category that I was having with or experiencing with a lot of these books. I still wouldn't say that this was like a really good reading month. This was very so-so. The highest rated reads that I had was Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. These memories do not belong to, Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, which is a 5-star read. These memories do not belong to us by Yingming Ma, which was a 4-star read. And Bad Friend, How Modern Women Revolutionized Modern Friendship by Tiffany Watt Smith, which was a 3-star. Average book length was 339 pages. The average time it took me to finish, it's saying it's 27 days, but that's, I think, only one book took me 27 days, so that's not for all of them. But anywho, when it came to fiction versus nonfiction, I read 75% fiction and 25% nonfiction. The top genres that I read from in September were science fiction, dystopian, literary, thriller, and horror. When it came to print versus digital versus audio, 100% of my books that I read were print, which again is typical for me. Yeah, so of all 4 books that I read in September, we have These Memories Do Not Belong to Us by Yingming Ma, which is a 4-star. Bad Friend, How Women Revolutionize Modern Friendship by Tiffany Watt Smith, which was 3 stars. Firefly Lane by Kirsten Hanna, which was 2 stars. And Middle of the Night by Riley Sager, which was 5 stars. Okay, so let's talk about what my favorite book of the month was for September. That would be Middle of the Night by Riley Sager. This was my favorite book for the month if you force me to pick one. So in this story, we are following, I do believe his name is Ethan Marsh, who is moving back to his neighborhood to take care of his parents' house while they're relocating to, I think, Florida for their retirement. And he's basically there to take care of the house until it's time to sell it. And due to this, he's kind of like reliving a lot of his younger childhood memories. Specifically, he's remembering and kind of reminiscing on the night that his best friend was abducted from his tent while they were sleeping out in his backyard, and how no one ever found out what happened to him. His name was Billy. No one ever found out what happened to Billy. There was no body that was found. He's still kind of reported missing, thought to be, dead. And he's just kind of like struggling with that trauma and how all of that changed him, changed his life as an adult, and impacted even his marriage with his wife. And he's just kind of reminiscing and going through all that. And he wants to resolve to, for once and for all, find out what happened to Billy. And in doing this, this kind of leads to a lot of different occurrences, a lot of different things that are happening, and a lot of secrets that come to light because of his jumping into finding out what happened. I really appreciate this book. I think one of the reasons why I loved it so much is because this was a different type of writing style, a different feel from Riley Sager's normal work, and it really worked for me. It felt more literary. It felt more character driven. There was a bit more of a dark and emotional aspect to this, and I greatly appreciated it, and it really worked for me. I love the strong character driven elements of this. I love that this, and appreciated that it wasn't a twist heavy thing. There were a couple of twists in this, but it wasn't anything like The Only One Left. If you've read that book by Riley Sager, you'll know that that was like twist after twist after twist. It wasn't like that. This was more of a slower build with a lot more of a emotional gut punch than anything, but it worked for me. I appreciate it and I enjoyed it. And again, landed on 5 fabulous stars for it. So yeah. When it came to my least favorite book, that would have to be, unfortunately, Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. I read this book for a video that I posted back in September where we were talking about female friendships. And this is one of the books that I read. And in this story for Firefly Lane, we're basically following these two childhood friends, Tully and Kate, who have been friends since they were young. And they have basically done life together, including going to college. And even though they've kind of branched off into their own separate careers, they're big fixers in each other's life. And no matter what little things threaten their friendship, they remain glued together until there's this one incident that happens that threatens the fabric of their friendship. And we see them disconnect and split. However, this book didn't work for me for a few reasons. The first reason being I didn't really jive with the writing style. There was something that felt a little lackluster, and it lacked a lot of emotional feel to me for whatever reason that was. Also, I felt disconnected from the characters. I really didn't feel that I got to fully understand them and connect with them so that I could properly empathize with them. And maybe not even empathize, but to understand them and, you know, see why they were the way they are and what made them tick. Also, I didn't like it because I felt this friendship was toxic and unhealthy. And it just didn't work for me because of that. I couldn't wrap my brain around it. I felt that Tully just walked all over Kate. And it was a very parasitic kind of friendship where everyone kind of worships Tully. And Tully was able to get away with a lot of shitty things because of that. And I just really did enjoy it. So 2 stars is what I landed on for that. And sorry, I'm looking at my notes. When it came to the book that took me by surprise, I think it was These Memories Do Not Belong to Us by Ying-Ming Ma. This book took me by surprise because it was such an interesting one. So in this book, we're basically following this person who we're following in this dystopian version of China, where this person has come into the possession of what are considered these illegal and outlawed memories by their government. And not knowing what to do with them, he's come into possession of them by his mother passing away and bequeathing them to him. And so he doesn't know what to do with these illegal kind of like memories. So he releases them onto this mainframe where everyone can kind of like upload and download or listen to and partake into watching, viewing, or consuming these memories in an effort to kind of fight back against the regime and tell the true story of their nation and their country, the good, the bad, the evil, and kind of tell the story of the people that have been impacted by the different things that their government has done throughout time. Very fascinating. I really loved the structure Chapter. I thought that was very neat and novel. So it was structured, and it kind of goes over in the introduction that you are to choose your own adventure with it and kind of read it the way that you felt that you wanted to read it. And you're seeing it in different kind of like phases of before it basically it fell into authoritarian rule. You're seeing that. You're seeing during the war that led up to the authoritarian rule, and you're seeing after it when it is under authoritarian rule. And you're seeing a lot of how these people were. You're seeing a lot of their pain points. You're seeing a lot of the things that happen due to the government. You're seeing how the government is controlling these people, and basically in the way with this new technology changing and erasing history to their benefit. Another thing that I really liked was this concept and this idea and kind of the premise of this. I felt that it's one of those books, you know, I feel like a lot of times when you read dystopian, they can feel very creepy because there's so many of the elements and the things that you see in dystopian novels that it reeks of what is actually happening in real time in the real world today. And this exploration of this government abusing and basically eradicating personal autonomy and people's private lives and what they're doing in their homes, what they're allowed to think and to dream, and then also trying to exert control over that, and also its attempt to commodify that and make money off of that. It, you know, it reeks of similarities with what we're experiencing in the current times. So I think that this concept and this idea and the way that this author executed it was fascinating. However, I do feel like it's one of those books that I need to go back and reread because I don't think that I was really able to fully enmesh myself in this story because the concept, the idea, the structure, everything about this novel was so novel and new that I didn't really get to appreciate the way that I should have. And I think that's probably why this didn't get a 5-star for me, because when I think about it, the themes that this novel explores and the topic, it should have definitely been a higher rated read for me. So I'm looking forward to rereading that into the future and just kind of really re-exploring that and seeing how I feel about it with a fresh set of eyes and not under the circumstances where I felt so rushed to read it because it was a loan that I got from the library. So I was in this hurry to quickly read it and get it turned back in. So I do want to reread that. So that wraps up September. Let's go into October. And October is arguably my best reading month of the fall. I was on fire in October. I don't know what it was. I think it was probably because I was just so excited about spooky season this year and so excited about all the different horror books that I was going to be reading as I've recently come back to falling in love with horror. So I was ready for it, and October was quite a successful month for me. So for October, I ended up reading 12 books, which was back on my standard number of books that I read per month, and that was amazing. The number of pages that I read was 4,210 pages that I read in October. My average rating is 4.5, which is typically my normal average rating for the books that I read. My highest rated reads of October was The Possession of Alba Diaz, which was 5 stars. The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig, which is 5 stars. And The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones, which was another 5 stars. So yeah, October was phenomenal. The average book length was 350 pages. Average time to finish was 39 days, which that's kind of skewed because some books that I was reading or that I finished in October were books I had started either in September or in August. So there's that. When it came to fiction versus nonfiction, 92% of the books that I read were fiction and 8% were nonfiction. The top genres was, of course, horror, thriller, literary, historical, LGBTQIA+. And when it comes to print versus digital, 83% of the books that I read were print and 17% were digital. The full overview of books for October, I finished We Are Not Like Them by Christine Pride and Joe Piazza, which I started in September, finished in October, and it's also a book that is featured in the Female Friendship vlog, and that was 4 stars. The second book, The Bewitching by Sylvia Moreno Garcia, was a book that I started in September for my book club and finished in October. 5 stars. Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. I started this book in September, finished it in October. 4 stars. Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Wang, I read in October. 5 stars. Salt Bones by Jennifer Given was 5 stars. The Staircase in the Woods by Chuck Wendig. Now, this is a book that I started like way in the summer, I do believe in June, and I finally finished in October. 5 stars. The Possession of Alba Diaz by Isabel Cañas was the October book club pick, and that was 5 stars. Willow Rose by M. Kevin Hayden, which was an arc that I got from, I think, Book Sirens. That was 2 stars. The Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Wang was 5 stars. A Sky Full of Love by Lorna Lewis. This is another book that I started back in like May or June and I finished in October. Was 4 stars. South to America, A Journey Below the Mason-Dixon to Understand the Soul of a Nation by Imani Perry. I started this book in the summer around the tail end of August and finished it in October. 5 stars. And last but not least, The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones was 5 fabulous stars. So let's talk about what my favorite book of the month was. As you can see, selecting my book of the month for October, what my favorite book was very, very, very hard. I had a lot of heavy hitters in October because I was doing some filming for my Genre Jump Horror Edition, Volume 1, Episode 2, and I was reading a lot of books for that, and I was finding a lot of bangers. But if I would have to give or select what my favorite book for October was, it would definitely have to be Salt Bones by Jennifer Given, because this book was phenomenal. It was everything that I love and that I look for. Also, this cover, stunning. I love the way these colors pop on this cover. It's a beautiful book. And yeah, but let me tell you the synopsis. So in this story, we are following Malamar and her girls. What was her name? It was Malamar Veracruz of El Valle. And we are following her and her daughters. It's not showing their names, but I think her daughter is Amaranda and Griselda, I'm thinking is the other daughter's name. But yeah, we're following them. And basically, Malamar is holding a lot of trauma and a lot of guilt and responsibility over her youngest sister, Elena, going missing many, many years ago after this party that was had. And how they were never able to find out what happened to her, and how her mother, they have this tense relationship because she partly blames Mal for her younger sister Elena's disappearance because that was just her favorite child. And we see Mal, who now has 2 daughters of her own and who is trying to create a life to support them, and where she also wants them to leave El Valle, leave this town because there's nothing for them. They have no future. And she's working hard for this while also trying to maintain this close relationship with them because she loves them so dearly. And it's this mixture of her holding close to them, but also wanting to free them and let them go so they can fly and be the best they can be. And while all these things are kind of happening at play, she's working at this meat market where she kind of cuts and handles the meat there. And this young girl goes missing, and this triggers a string of events that occurs in this novel that leads to Mal becoming super involved in finding out what is happening with this missing girl, and also is opening up a lot of trauma and a lot of old wounds when it comes to Elena's disappearance, as there seems to be some parallels with that. And we are seeing not only Mal's kind of perspective and what's happening within Mal, but we're also seeing from her daughters Griselda and Amaranta how they're experiencing this and what's going on with each of their narratives as well. And it's giving this epic feel, this epic scope to the story. And as if that is not enough, this has a lot of rich folklore in it. It has the kind of legend of La Sigonaba, and we have that being threaded throughout this story, this creating this very phenomenal, emotional, just evocative read. And the reason that I love this so much, and why this is one of my favorites for October, is because this prose is ridiculous. The prose is so stunning. It is atmospheric. The way that Jennifer Given creates these lines and just writes this novel with such rich metaphorical imagery, these beautiful similes. You can tell that she is definitely a poet, because the way that she writes so poetically, and I loved every stinking bit of it. It spoke to me. I love the way that she developed these characters. They had such depth. They had such layers. I loved a lot of the themes, a lot of the topics that were included within this. I really appreciated the way that she explored this kind of frustration I feel like we all feel, women of Black and brown bodies, how when we go missing, it's never taken seriously. We are never having the forces of people that are going out there pounding the streets looking for our missing young daughters and sisters and young girls. We kind of get thrown to the wayside. We get treated as adults and we get blamed for becoming missing. We get blamed for all these situations that we land up in, and nobody is there to fight for us. Nobody is there to give voice to these young girls and these young women that go missing. And I loved the way that she explored this topic. I loved the way that she talked about family secrets and about old sins and how they can destroy and fester a family, and the way even that we think about people when it comes to towns and communities, the things that we're willing to believe and that we are willing to co-sign with, the way that we're willing to kind of commit and have this, the way that we're able to be complicit with a lot of misinformation, with a lot of rumors about people within our towns, and we're able to vilify and rip people apart unjustly because of our own prejudices and our own fears. And what really truly lurks behind that is even more sinister, and the things that people are able to get away with. I can talk about this book all day because I loved it so much. So that's why it had to be my favorite book for October, because I loved it so very much. And yeah, it was amazing. So my least favorite is going to be Willow Rose by M. Kevin Hayden. This was an arc that I received from Book Sirens, and it had a lot of promise. So it promised to be what I thought was going to be a delectable cosmic horror, as I love cosmic horror. That's one of the subgenres of horror that I'm becoming really interested in. And basically in this book, we are following this gentleman who is a doctor at this kind of remote, community. And I think, is it like Minnesota? And it's at the brink of this really heavy snowstorm kind of coming in, but they're also experiencing this kind of cosmic event where this comet is slowly traveling overhead, and it's not like any other comet that has ever like come in before. It's not acting particularly or behaving normally, and it's causing a lot of interference with like their radio systems and television and all those different things. Is causing interference with that. And on the night of one of his shifts, I can't think of his name right now. It's something like, I think it's Alder or something like that. On the night of one of his shifts, because he works at the ER overnight, he is going home after like, I think like a 10-hour or something shift. He is driving home, and there is this strange event that occurs where this elk is in the middle of the road, and then like there's like a blackout or something happens with this loud screeching noise. And after this event, a lot of strange occurrences end up happening, and it's kind of like pushes him into this, and this kind of leads to this epic battle between like darkness and light. And we see how he is able to overcome that, or kind of all what falls out from that, as a lot of his decisions and a lot of his kind of interpretation of life and of his future becomes altered and changed. If you're confused by what I just said, imagine how I was confused by what I read. Because if you think that the premise doesn't make sense, what I read didn't make sense. I fear that this novel was very disjointed. It wanted to be a lot of different things. And I think it's because it wanted to explore a variety of different subgenres, from supernatural to the cosmic horror elements to more psychological horror. And I would argue that all horror has a psychological component, right? But I think it didn't do a good job of execution. It didn't do a very good job of marrying these different kind of like elements of horror to where they were cohesive and made sense. It kind of felt stilted. There was a lot of telling as opposed to showing. And that was a problem for me, especially when it came to the foreboding and when it came to the atmosphere, because I don't want to be told that this is an existential crisis. I don't want to be told that, he has this nihilistic viewpoint. I want to experience it the way the character experiences it so that I can have more of an immersive experience, right? And it could be more evocative for me. And that wasn't happening. The pacing felt off and weird. The characterization was weird. There were a lot of different plot points and storylines that weren't satisfactorily explained or kind of like closed. And the conclusion and the ending, it didn't vibe with, I felt like, the general tone that he was taking throughout the novel. So it didn't work for me. I gave it 2 stars. It didn't work for me. I'm so sorry. Lastly, the book that took me by surprise in October was Immaculate Conception by Ling Ling Huang. So in this novel, we are following Inca and Mathilde, who they meet in art school. There are 2 different people from 2 different tracks. Mathilde being more of upper class, Inca being more of the lower class, and they're attending this art school. And Mathilde is just a gifted, talented artist. Inca is trying so much to become kind of like and meet Mathilde's success, while she's also kind of like entering into this friendship where she idolizes her and worships her and sees the world of her. And we're seeing that friendship develop and form, and these 2 women go close together. Now, after they depart from school and they start their own separate lives and separate careers, we do see Mathilde, growing in her art career, growing as an artist and reaching critical acclaim. And we don't see Inca making that much or having, sorry, my camera shut off, but we don't see Inca reaching that much success with her art career. And we see how they have grown distant, and we see that Inca in turn has kind of like her adoration and her obsession with Mathilde has soured, and she's very jealous and very petty and becomes very competitive and wants to outdo her and all of these different things. And at this point in time, when she finds this, or when this opportunity presents itself where she can use this new technology called the scaffold to help Mathilde kind of work through her trauma so that she can get to a better place of mental health and recovery and recuperation, Inca jumps at this opportunity to kind of like learn more about Mathilde and view her inspiration, view what makes her such a great artist. And at her doing this, she threatens not only their friendship, but the health and well-being of them both, and changes their trajectory forever. I wasn't prepared for this novel. I wasn't prepared for Ling Ling Huang because she's an amazing author. Seriously. But I feel like the reason this book took me by surprise is because this premise, there's a lot going on within this premise. And the way that she executed it, the way that she talked about these different themes and talked about these different topics while still hitting the beats and moving and propelling the plot forward for the central theme and idea as we are exploring this friendship, and we are exploring how competition and, how jealousy can destroy a friendship and its impact on friendship. And she also is going into the idea of art and originality, who owns art. She's talking a lot and providing some very apt commentary on generative AI and all these different things. And again, she manages to do this and balance all of these heavy hitting topics and these themes in such a cohesive and beautiful way, with rich storytelling, beautiful prose, apt commentary. It really was such a cerebral and thought-provoking experience. It was amazing. When I finished this book, my brain felt so satisfied from finishing this book. It was a delight. I really, really enjoyed it. I really, really loved it. Had a fabulous time with this, and highly recommend if you have not read anything from Ling Wang and you like literary horror and you do like kind of like speculative elements being blended into horror, you will enjoy this. It's stunning. So that was October. Phenomenal month. Had a great, great time. November. I'm back to struggling. So November was a struggle. I was on the struggle bus because of sinus kicking my tail. The time change really disrupts my circadian rhythm and leads to some seasonal affective disorder, which is also kicking my tail. So that combined with, work and trying to make decisions about like life stuff, I fear it whooped my tail, but that's okay. We move. So for November, we read 6 books, not the highest, not my normal, but not god awful either. We made some moves, okay? Pages was 2,172 pages. That's great. Average rating was 4.17. So we're still reading quality books that I like and that I enjoy. Highest rated reads was The Weight of Dreams by Nicole Sorrell, which was 5 stars. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore, which was 5 stars. This Cursed House by Del Sandine, which was 4 stars. Average book length was 334 pages. Average time to finish was 16 days. I read 100% fiction, and that's actually not true because I am reading a nonfiction, but neither here nor there. The top 2 genres was LGBTQIA+ and horror, with historical, romance, and fantasy coming in second. And when it came to digital versus print, I read 67% digital and 33% print. So that is that. All the books that I read in November was I Live to Serve the Witch, which I started in October, I think on Halloween, and finished in November, by Jackie I. This was 4 stars. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Lori Gilmore was 5 stars. You Watched in Silence by H. Lee Justine was 3 stars. Chuck Tingle Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle was 4 stars. The Weight of Dreams by Nicole Sorrell was 5 stars. And This Cursed House by Del Sandine was 4 stars. If you're forcing me to pick a favorite read for November, I would have to say it would be This Cursed House by Del Sandine, because this novel was amazing. So in this novel, we are following Gemma, who her life is a wreck right now due to an event. She loses her job, or due to a scandal rather, she loses her job. Things end with her boyfriend, her live-in boyfriend at the time, due to him getting another woman pregnant. So she's kind of, in a tough spot. And when she gets this job opportunity, where they're asking her to come down and work for the Duchamp family in New Orleans, Louisiana, she jumps at it because she doesn't have anything going on right in her life. Upon reaching there, though, she discovers that she's not really hired for the intentions or the purposes that she thought that she was being hired for, which was to tutor a child. Instead, she was hired to break a curse that this family is experiencing, where every 7 years one of the family members dies, and they want her to break this curse. And due to some information and due to some things taking place, she also discovers that this curse is linked directly to her as well, and that if she doesn't break it, she might lose her life as well. So she is desperately working to break this curse, but as she's doing this, she's discovering a lot of secrets and a lot of lies that this family is telling, and she is wondering, and we are wondering, whether she will be able to overcome this and break this curse and save her life and their life too. And I love this book. It was a frustrating book, don't get me wrong, because sometimes characters can be frustrating, but you know, it is what it is. But overall, I really love this book. I loved it because I am a big fan of Southern Gothic, and this had the atmosphere, just everything that makes you think of Southern Gothic and what makes it enjoyable, that claustrophobic feel that you get reading Southern Gothic. This has it. I really appreciated it. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. I also felt like with the setting and with the characters, again, it's one of those books where you can literally like hear their voices so vividly. You can like see them so vividly. You can feel yourself in this setting. Like I felt like I was in New Orleans. I felt everything. Like it was so palpable. I really appreciated that. I also really enjoyed the supernatural paranormal element in the story. So this story has ghosts. We have a little bit of a cult happening. We have Gemma being clairvoyant, so she can see and speak to ghosts and interact with ghosts. We also have the curse on the family, which I felt that was interesting, and the way that all kind of played out and how that was structured. Loved it. I also really appreciated the themes in this novel that deal with generational trauma, that deal with family secrets, kind of rotting and festering and destroying a family from the inside out. Are you noticing a theme about things that I like in books? And also what I really appreciated about this was this kind of like discussion, this theme and the commentary regarding colorism that we see that's happening and occurring within this novel. I really loved it. I really enjoyed it. Gemma was such a palpable character as well. And she made me frustrated a couple of times because she was making decisions and doing things. I felt like I would not do that. Why are you doing that? Why are you even there? But when I really think about what makes Gemma who she is as a character and as a person within this novel, it tracks and it makes absolute sense when you think about her childhood, when you think about where she came from and how everything had an impact on her and her thoughts and her feelings and her hopes and desires. It makes sense and it tracks with why she did things the way that she did things. But I am very happy that she made a good friend. Magdalene, I loved her. She's my favorite character from this book because she said the things that I wish I could say. And I was so glad that there was a character in this that was saying the things that I wanted to say to Gemma. I loved it. This was a fabulous time. And there are two books in November that took me by surprise. The first being Lucky Day by Chuck Tingle. So when I got this book from the library, I had no expectations I was going to like this. I looked at the cover, I read the premise, and I was like, this could either be good or this could be bad. But I'm trying to discover all the different horror that I like and different horror authors, so I'm willing to give this a try. And I'm glad that I did because I really enjoyed this novel. So in Lucky Day, we were following Vera, who is on the verge of like her new book, or she just had a new book that was released. She's having a celebration with her family and with her mother, who she kind of has this tense relationship with. And it is on this night that she shares with her that she's engaged to a woman and that she's bisexual. And her mother kind of like invalidates all that, doesn't really believe that she's totally gay. She thinks that, you know, you're bi, it's not really real, you're just experimenting. And they have this argument, and it's during this argument that this string of fantastical, wild things happen, and this cataclysmic event occurs. And due to this event, Vera is thrust into this dark, unrelenting trauma because of the events that take place in this novel. Due to this situation, I think, what was it called? It was called the low probability event. And she is just frustrated because of all the loss, all that she saw, all the violence that she witnessed, all that she went through. It really puts her in a dark pit, in a dark place. And that is until this agent who is investigating the low probability event comes to her and extends this offer to help him crack down or come against this particular casino. I think it's the Great Britannica casino, to come against them and find out if they were actually linked to the low probability event and bring them to justice. And so she does end up working with him in this effort to bring these people to justice and to find out what really happened on this day. And this was really good. This is really good. I really enjoyed it. I think the things I enjoyed about it a lot was how Chuck Tingle was able to structure this novel. So it was very satirical. A lot of the horror elements and a lot of the violence was very hyperbolic and very satirical and very outlandish and like surreal. But he was able to ground it in reality. I think that the thread that made it grounded it in reality for me was how strong Vera was when it came to statistics and probability. And that part of it grounded it in reality and helped it to not be this like crazy wild thing that you can't really read because it's just what the hell. That I appreciated. I also like Vera as a character. I felt that she was fascinating and interesting. I also related to a lot of her struggles when it comes to nihilism and existentialism and like some of the points and the things that she explored. I liked how we got some mental health representation from Vera as after she experienced the low probability event, she struggled a lot with that trauma and she had some PTSD, and we got to see that in the book. Her experiencing that, and I appreciated that kind of like representation. And yeah, it really worked for me. I really enjoyed it. And I'm looking forward to exploring more novels by Chuck Tingle. Next, the book that took me by surprise in November was The Weight of Dreams by Nicole Sorrell. So this was an arc that I got from Book Sirens. And this is like a historical fiction. And we are basically following this young woman named Itana, who is in this village, and it's kind of set in the ancient Africa, specifically following the Nubian dynasty. And we see Itana, who lives in this village where basically they undergo this womanhood rite of passage before they are, you know, kind of set off to marry a man. And in this case with her, she's being sent to marry this much older man. She's going to be his third wife, and she just does not want to either go through this rite of passage. She doesn't want this as her future, and she wants more for herself. And so she ends up fleeing this village and kind of seeking her own way in the world. And during this kind of adventure and during this escape, she ends up falling into this tribe of elephant. I don't know, is it called a tribe? She ends up falling in with these elephants, and they kind of become a sort of family, and she's able to communicate uniquely with them. And a lot of this is because due to her link and her kind of like heritage and lineage to the beast god in this novel, that she has this special relationship with animals, and in her case, especially with elephants. And we see as she's kind of living and like in harmony with these elephants, that this reaches back to the king of Nubia as he requests her help in training one of his most boisterous and I think injured elephants to become his war elephant for an upcoming war that he is to face with this other kingdom. And upon her accepting this and traveling to this kingdom, it changes her life trajectory and her story forever. And this was such a beautiful story. It captured my attention immediately in the first sentence. The way the writing style was so rich and regal, and it just held, I don't know, like some history, or it just had a commanding presence in the way that it was written in this writing style. I don't know how else to explain it. It felt like an epic experience. It was another one of the books that I would say I could clearly hear and see and visualize and like really get immersed in the story, because I could hear these characters speak in this specific accent that I think would be so indicative of that language during the time, and the way that I was able to visualize and see things. It was such an evocative and just really amazing experience reading this book, and I think that's why I loved it so much. It was also very heartfelt and emotional. I loved the feminist themes regarded in this, and how Tana, she did a lot of things and made a lot of changes for not just for herself as a woman, but to help women everywhere and change how women were treated as a collective. And the way that she was able to do that was so intelligent. And yeah, I love this book a lot. It made me cry at the end because things happened that I didn't expect to happen. And I wasn't able to predict or see any of these things coming, but I really, really enjoyed it. And it took me by surprise because I wasn't expecting to enjoy this novel as much as I did. Okay, friends, so that is my fall reading wrap up. If you're interested in any of the books I talked about or that I mentioned in this video, I'm going to include a link to my bookshop.org shop where if you choose, you can purchase the books there. For me, I do get a small commission, but you also get to choose to support an indie bookstore with your purchase as well. If you're interested, no big deal. Also, I do want to share that I will be launching my book club, EmpowerLit, officially January 2026. If you would like more information or if you're interested in joining my book club, I'm going to include a link to that in the description box as well. Even though in December we're not meeting, we will be having 2 different read-a-thons that you can participate in. If you would like, you can visit the link for the read-a-thons to get more information about that. And I'll be sharing as well what the book schedule or the selections for the first quarter is going to look like. I do know for January we will be reading I, Medusa by Ariana Gray. So if that interests you, definitely go ahead and click the link. The book club is free. There's nothing to pay. You can just click on the link and join and get a lot of free fun. Yeah, so that is all for this video. I can't wait to see you in the next one. Until then, bye.